Here's version 3 of the corded detached stitch with yarn that is too thick to bring through your fabric with a normal needle. So to begin, I'm using 2 strands of embroidery thread with a small DMC embroidery needle size 10. Later we'll be using these larger needles. They're plastic DMC needles with a round end. If you haven't watched my other tutorials on this stitch, I would suggest watching them first. I think this stitch is easier to learn by using smaller fibers first, so check those out if you have a second. I'm going to begin by tracing my shape with a simple back stitch. It's important that these back stitches are large enough to bring our yarn through, and it's a pretty thick yarn, so I'm making these back stitches rather large. Now that I'm finished tracing my shape, I'm going to knot the back and then grab one of these larger needles and grab about an arm's length of this yarn. I'm just going to twist the ends a little bit to make the fibers easier to thread through this needle. And I'm going to knot just one end, and instead of bringing it through the fabric, I'm going to bring it through the bottom back stitch on the bottom of my square. I'm bringing my needle in through the left hand side, the bottom back stitch, and I'm going to weave my yarn through by bringing it under my needle and over top the needle, which will create a small loop, which I will then pull my needle through. I'm going to repeat this step by going through the next back stitch on this side of the square, bringing my yarn underneath and around the needle and pulling my needle through the loop. Now I'm going to do this one last time. Now after I pull my yarn through this loop, I'm going to bring the needle underneath the back stitch on the top row of my square and pull it through to secure our first row. I'm also bringing my needle through a back stitch right next to it, as well as the back stitch on the bottom row. Now with my new row, I'm going to attach it to my first row, and I'll do that by bringing my needle through the loop on my last row underneath the new piece of yarn and bringing it through the loop, and repeating that process with all 3 loops on our first row that we stitched. When I finish, I'm going to do the same thing I did last time by pulling it through the top back stitch, and now I'm just going to weave everything together by bringing my thread and yarn through the right back stitches and through the loops in the middle of my weaves and pulling them to the right hand side to fill my entire shape. When I'm finished, I'm going to bring my needle through the bottom back stitch and trim off any remaining thread or fibers that I no longer want. And there you go. It's not super neat, but I love how this turned out, and I hope you had fun. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.